you ever watched a friend's carefully laid plans unravel under the weight of their own good intentions, as if each noble aim carried an unseen stone that sank their ship? Niccolò Machiavelli warned us 2 centuries ago that the path to ruin is often paved with the best of intentions. Men never do evil so completely and cheerfully as when they do it from religious conviction, he wrote in The Prince. In other words, when virtue becomes a blind idol, unexamined and absolute, it can blind us to the consequences of our actions, turning generosity into overreach, mercy into weakness, and ideals into shackles. Imagine a young consul in Renaissance Florence, determined to root out corruption by granting every accused official the benefit of the doubt. He believed in the purity of his motives, that justice must be tempered with mercy. Yet in granting leniency to one too many fraudsters, he unwittingly allowed embezzlement to spread like rot through the city's coffers. His heartfelt reforms, intended to protect the innocent, had instead emboldened the guilty. Machiavelli would have smirked. A man who wishes to profess goodness at all times, he advised, inevitably comes to grief among so many who are not good. The consul's fault was not malice, but an unbending faith that righteousness alone would bend others' wills. In Machiavelli's view, effective leadership demands a cool-eyed appraisal of human nature. He counsels that it is much safer to be feared than loved, not because cruelty is admirable, but because fear commands caution in others, whereas love is a fickle currency that vanishes in crisis. Consider a captain who leads his men with boundless compassion, refusing to enforce strict discipline for fear of appearing harsh. At first, his fighters adore him, but when battle comes, their loyalty crumbles under pressure. The benevolent captain, so certain his good will would carry him, finds his line in shambles. Had he tempered kindness with authority, earned their respect through both carrot and stick, he would have forged unbreakable bonds. Machiavelli insisted that the ends justify the means, by which he meant that successful rulers must evaluate actions by their outcomes, not by their moral comfort. Yet, the ends justify the means is often misunderstood as a license for unchecked brutality. Machiavelli was more subtle. He argued that a prince must cultivate the appearance of virtue, faithfulness, honesty, mercy, while retaining the freedom to abandon those virtues when necessity dictates. A prince must appear merciful, faithful, humane, upright, and religious, he wrote. And it is unnecessary for him to have all those qualities, but it is very necessary to appear to have them. Think of a general negotiating a peace treaty. He speaks of brotherhood and shared prosperity, all while planting hidden contingencies to seize territory should negotiations fall through. The public speech cements allies. The private clause shields him against betrayal. His intentions, to secure lasting peace, are good, but only if backed by the practical means to defend it. Mercy, Machiavelli cautions, is a double-edged sword. Imagine a judge who never pronounces sentence without first granting clemency, convinced that forgiveness elevates the soul. But criminals, seeing this judge's leniency, return again and again to their crimes, eventually destroying the very society he sought to uplift. In one stroke, the judge's compassion sows greater suffering. Better, Machiavelli argues, to mete out a single decisive punishment, harsh but just, so that order prevails and society flourishes. Men change, he observes, from how they appear to what they are when they lose whatever they have been given. A ruler who refuses to discipline will lose more in the long run than he gains in fleeting praise. The danger of good intentions also extends into alliances. A prince who binds himself by too many pacts, each made in idealistic pursuit of goodwill, finds his hands tied when swift action is needed. In the complex politics of Italian city-states, Machiavelli saw ambassadors weaving webs of promises that quickly snapped under pressure, leaving their patrons betrayed. He counseled that alliances should be entered only when interests align permanently. And even then, a prudent ruler maintains the power to exit when their allies' fortunes wane. One who deceives will always find those who allow themselves to be deceived, Machiavelli warns. Intentions of friendship can blind us to the fickleness of others. A prudent mind examines underlying incentives, not just expressed solidarity. Machiavelli's insight reaches into modern boardrooms and courtrooms alike. Consider the CEO who launches a corporate social responsibility initiative, convinced that altruism will inspire employee devotion and customer loyalty. He pours resources into philanthropic projects, even as his R&D lags and his margins shrink. The board applauds his heart, but investors capitalize on his weakened finances. The CEO's noble intent, to serve society, backfires when his company falters, laying off workers he once sought to dignify. Machiavelli would note that men are driven by self-interest, not by the public good, and that virtue unaccompanied by savvy strategy invites ruin. Yet darkness need not swallow decency entirely. Machiavelli himself, often painted as a cynic, urged rulers to temper their tactics with moderation. He warned that excessive cruelty unites people against you, and that the wise man avoids those beginnings which would lead to his being hated rather than to his being feared. The art lies in balance. Wield power where necessary, but preserve enough goodwill to sustain the social fabric. A legislator who passes reform with ruthless efficiency, but never takes time to explain the necessity to the public, will spark protests more devastating than any entrenched wrongdoing. Good intentions also mislead individuals in daily life. A father who vests his son with every privilege, scholarships, influence, believes he's offering love. Yet the son grows helpless, never learning to endure failure or cultivate resilience. In pursuing the best for his child, the father sows dependency. Machiavelli would advise a tempered generosity. Grant opportunities, but with conditions. Expect accountability, demand results, so that character develops alongside comfort. In his world, even kindness must be measured, for a prudent man should always follow in the path trodden by great men and imitate those who are most excellent, so that if he does not attain their greatness, at least he will get some tinge of it. In the final analysis, Machiavelli's central wisdom is that virtue must be woven into a tapestry of reality. Good intentions, left unexamined, can blind us like a veil. Sharpened by self-knowledge and applied with strategic acumen, they become the bedrock of sustainable success. His razor-sharp lessons remind us that leadership is not a matter of perfect morality, but of effective morality. The capacity to choose when to wield kindness and when to strike, when to forge alliances and when to guard against treachery, when to temper mercy and when to enforce justice. Only by recognizing that the road to hell is indeed paved with good intentions, and by deliberately selecting each stone, can we build a path that leads not to ruin, but to enduring order. And yet, even Machiavelli understood that the cold calculus of power cannot be practiced without a living moral compass. Otherwise, the ruler risks isolation and eventual collapse. In Discourses on Livy, he reminds us, men are driven by two principal impulses, either by love or by fear. To rely solely on fear is to sow the seeds of hatred. To rely solely on love is to starve one's authority. The wise leader must therefore cultivate a third impulse, respect. Respect is earned not by magnanimous speeches or untempered cruelty, but by a consistent blending of principled firmness and strategic generosity. It is what transforms grudging obedience into genuine loyalty, ensuring that when crisis strikes, subjects stand by you, not out of dread alone, but out of a shared commitment to stability and success. Consider the optical illusion of the benevolent tyrant. He bestows lavish patronage on the arts, founds hospitals, speaks eloquently of justice, yet he never hesitates to silence critics, seize property at will, or dispatch envoys with secret orders. His public face is that of a humanitarian. His private ledger fills with the names of those who questioned him. This duality is exactly what Machiavelli prescribed. Appear virtuous until virtue itself becomes a liability. But here lies the trap. If your benevolence is never genuine, if your generosity is always calculated, those you govern will learn in time that every kindness conceals a knife. The steady drip of such manipulation corrodes respect more surely than any overt act of brutality. True mastery lies in the subtle art of occasional vulnerability. Machiavelli counsels that a ruler must sometimes lay aside grandeur to appear approachable, even fallible. A calculated confession of a trivial fault, perhaps a misjudged tax policy or a misfired military maneuver, can humanize you, inviting empathy and strengthening bonds, but it must be genuine enough to ring true, and the misstep must be small enough not to undermine your authority. In that moment, your subjects see not an omnipotent figurehead, but a fellow human being, wrestling with the same complexities as themselves. That glimpse behind the curtain transforms your power into a shared enterprise. They follow you not because you command from on high, but because they recognize your fallibility and choose to stand by you anyway. Machiavelli also warns that no ruler should underestimate the power of fortune, fortuna, the unpredictable forces of chance that can elevate or obliterate the best laid plans. He writes, "Fortune is a woman, and if you wish to keep her under it, is necessary to beat and ill-treat her." By this, he means that you must continually adapt, anticipate shifts, and seize opportune moments, rather than cling stubbornly to past victories. In practice, this might mean disrupting a long-standing alliance when the political winds shift, or pivoting your economic strategy when new technologies render old methods obsolete. The moment you treat success as permanent, you open the door to disaster. Yet to be slavishly reactive is equally perilous. Machiavelli extols the virtues of virtu, the quality of decisive, creative action that molds fate rather than surrenders to it. Virtu is not moral virtue, but the amalgam of strength, cunning, and adaptability. A ruler endowed with virtu surveys the horizon with keen eyes, develops contingencies for every known risk, and acts swiftly when opportunity knocks. In a modern boardroom, this translates to maintaining a flexible capital structure, cultivating diverse revenue streams, and empowering teams to make bold decisions under clear strategic guidelines. When competition veers unexpectedly, or regulations tighten overnight, the company with true virtu does not panic. It pivots. No exploration of Machiavellian wisdom would be complete without addressing the role of information. A wise prince, Machiavelli advises, should establish nothing except what is within the compass of his own vision. In other words, never rely entirely on the reports of courtiers or middle managers. Cultivate your own intelligence network, sift rumors from facts, and verify through multiple sources. In the digital age, this means embedding yourself in the trenches. Monitor customer feedback, engage with frontline employees, and maintain direct communication channels with critical stakeholders. The ruler who trusts only filtered data is one step away from being blindsided by a competitor's stealth launch or a market upheaval. Finally, let us return to Machiavelli's most enduring paradox: the necessity of occasional cruelty conducted with the precision of a surgeon's scalpel. He illustrates this with the example of Cesare Borgia's seizure of Romagna, where Borgia executed the most notorious tyrants swiftly and publicly, then replaced them with capable, loyal governors. The shock of that cruelty was a single, transformative moment. Afterwards, rule in those provinces was stable, efficient, and largely peaceful. The memory of punishment deterred further insurrection, and the subsequent governance earned genuine support. Applied to contemporary reform, this might look like zero tolerance for corruption in one high-profile case, followed by rigorous but fair oversight of the entire system. The immediate cruelty is the public trial and conviction. The lasting peace is the restored trust in institutions. Machiavelli's final counsel is a sober reminder. No ruler can remain in power without a willingness to cross the threshold of moral comfort. Yet at the same time, no ruler can survive through cruelty alone. The art of principled pragmatism demands that each action, each combination of sword and olive branch, be carefully weighed, precisely timed, and relentlessly self-critiqued. Only then does the path, so often paved with the best intentions, become a carefully constructed avenue to enduring success rather than an unwitting march into oblivion. In mastering this art, you do not abandon virtue. You elevate it into a dynamic force, one that, far from blinding you, illuminates the true contours of power.